Hi there, welcome to Kneppy Invest. A bit of a stoush between Cettire and the AFR on March the 6th, 2024. The AFR released an article before trading had begun, which was a little bit critical on Cettire and some of the practices they do have. And that article saw the share price of Cettire drop 27% in a few minutes. Now, Cettire did respond to that article. They released an announcement, also did a conference call, and the market seemed to like that particular conference call and a response because the share price recovered. And by the end of the day, the share price was only down 14%. And then lo and behold, in the afternoon or even evening, AFR released two further articles, sort of justifying their initial article and also continuing their sort of their criticism of Cettire. And in this video today, I'm going to go through that initial article, see what I can understand about what AFR are trying to bring up, trying to be critical in regards to Cettire. I'm going to look at Cettire's response, and then I'll quickly look at the last two articles that AFR did release on their website. And here is the initial article written by Jonathan Shapiro and Kerry LaFrance, released at 5 a.m. Now, I actually do have a lot of time and respect for Jonathan Shapiro. I believe he's a really good investigative reporter. I don't know much about Kerry LaFrance, but this article, and the reason I do have a lot of respect with Jonathan Shapiro is because he wrote some scathing articles on another company called Biggin about 5-6 years ago. And at that point in time, Biggin was a 10-bagger for me. And just based off Jonathan Shapiro article and my own lack of belief and conviction around that company, I decided to sell out the majority of my holdings in that company. And within a few months, that company was no more because it was a massive fraud. So that's why I have a lot of respect for Jonathan Shapiro. And I believe we do need more investigative journalists, not only in this country, but around the world. In fact, I was reading about Watergate the other day, and that's the sort of thing I think we need more of. Anyway, this article was titled, "We Spent $1,300 Shopping at Cettire. Here's what happened." Now, the first question I have is, why would you want to spend any money at Cettire? And that's not the sort of store I would spend any money on. Now, that's just me. I'm not the target audience for Cettire. It's the buzziest stock on the ASX thanks to eye-watering sales and wide margins. I'd actually bite back on the wide margins. I prefer their margins to be a little bit more, but maybe I'm being a little bit too picky. However, customer reviews aren't so glowing. What's behind Cettire's success? Now, I do have a problem with this customer reviews. So I'm not going to go through the whole article. I'll just put in some paragraphs within the article that I did find intriguing. And this is the first paragraph. "But while fashionistas, what word is that? Are intrigued," you can just tell I have no idea when it comes to fashion, "are intrigued and investment backs are raving, the tens of thousands of online reviews from customers are not all quite so positive." Now, of course, they're not all quite so positive because this is exactly what you'll see on online reviews for any company in the world, because those who don't like the service they have given are more likely to vent online. So I went to see how Cettire's competitors are also faring on their online reviews, and they're all doing horribly. In fact, some of these online reviews on these competing companies are worse than Cettire's. But in saying that, Cettire's reviews online are pretty bad. But again, this is what you should expect. So I have no problems with this particular part of Cettire. Now, the second paragraph did I find intriguing because they spent this $1,300 and they bought, I think, four separate items. And more than likely, all the items were at a significant discount to what they would buy if they went to the store itself. And that does seem to be the business model of Cettire, is people who want to buy these quality, and I say quality in quotation marks, but they don't have the means to buy these quality products, can go to Cettire and buy them at a significant discount. I don't know why you would do that. That's just me. I don't care about brand names and that sort of thing. But again, that's just me. So they bought this stuff, and it was an exercise that revealed a startling discrepancy. This is the whole problem we have with this. Not my problem, but this is the whole problem that Jonathan Shapiro and Kerry LaFrance had with their transaction through Cettire. Some $169 in duties paid by the Financial Review and owed to the Australian government was instead banked by Cettire. Now, if that is true, that would be quite damning. And to be honest with you, I didn't get any more clarification from Cettire in regards to whether they actually did bank this $169. And we'll talk about that in a second. So possibly AFR and Jonathan Shapiro and Kerry LaFrance do have some legitimacy around this article, just around this one particular paragraph. Now, further to my questions about what happened to that $169.43, we go on a little bit of a ride right here, because this company, or Jonathan Shapiro and Kerry LaFrance, paid $1,133.78 for a handbag, scarf, shoes, and shorts. Why would you pay $414 for a shoulder bag, even though it's C by Chloe, never heard of it? Why would you pay $281 for a Max Mara Sayo Nuto printed scarf? I wouldn't even pay $10 for a scarf. Why would you pay $246.55 for some sneakers and almost $200 for some shorts? That just boggles my mind. I don't understand why people pay so much money for such superficial things. Research has shown that you get no happiness from buying these sort of things, and that's why I would never pay this sort of money for these sort of things. So they bought 4 different items that cost $1,133.78. No shipping. Shipping was free. So why would anyone complain that you're spending that amount of money? Yes, shipping is free, but you have to pay a little bit of duties, $169.43. Now, they do mention none of the duties, $169.43, paid as part of the order were handed over by Cettire to Australian customs officials. Not sure how they get to that ending or that conclusion. And they did speak to a DHL customer service officer, because that's who delivered the package. And on that particular package, they mentioned duties and taxes unpaid. So did they come to the conclusion that the duties weren't paid to Australian customs officials because it actually says duties and taxes unpaid on that DHL document? I don't know. It also says here, declare value for customs, $255.69. Not sure what that means. Anyway, so the DHL service rep says, I can confirm that there were no duty taxes charged for these AWBs. Not sure what AWBs means. We should say items, and did not meet the individual threshold of $1,000. So I don't know anything about custom taxes, that sort of thing. So it seems like if you're paying over $1,000 or something, you have to pay duty taxes. And these 4 items were all less than $1,000. In fact, they're all less than $400. So somewhere along the line, there seems to be something wrong with the system, because Cettire charged $169.43 in duties, more than likely because the subtotal of all 4 items are above $1,000. But there may be, according to the DHL representative, there should not have been any duties for these 4 items. Now, the second part of the response, Cettire's response, refers to DHL's shipping label, and this did cause a little bit of confusion with me. And to be honest with you, whenever I'm confused by something, I either go away and never have a look at the article again, or whatever I'm confused about, or I'll go back to it later and see if I get a bit more of an understanding the second time through, or even a third time through. So let's go through these 3 little paragraphs. So this language on the DHL shipping label bears no relation whatsoever to whether or not duties were applicable to the shipment, nor whether duties were actually paid. So my big question again is, what happened to the $169? Does the customer get a refund, or does Cettire bank it, or was that $169 eventually banked by the Department of Home Affairs, who banks all the duties, I suppose? Anyway, so rather, it refers to a service provided by DHL whereby it facilitates the payment of duty on behalf of its customer, Cettire. So that bit didn't confuse me, but I'll go back to this bit when we look at the 3rd paragraph down below. Now, the 2nd paragraph, I have no problems. Actually, no, not that paragraph. It's the first part of the 3rd paragraph. In this specific example, duties and taxes unpaid simply means that that service was not provided by DHL on the relevant shipment. So even though they facilitate the payment of duties on behalf of Cettire, in this case, That did not happen. Does that mean duties and taxes were not applicable for this particular order? I don't know. Now, the last paragraph, the first bit I do understand completely. It does not mean that there is any outstanding duty payable by the customer or by Cettire in relation to the shipment. I completely understand that. And then they say any implication in the article to the contrary is incorrect. I'm not sure that's what Jonathan Shapiro and Kevin Franz were trying to get at. I think they're more saying what happened to our original $169.43 that we paid in relation to duties and taxes. What happened to that money? Did Cettire bank that money? In Australia, Cettire has a direct debit arrangement in place with the Department of Home Affairs to facilitate the direct payment of applicable duties prior to customers' clearance. I don't understand this. This is in sort of conflict with that first paragraph where they say that DHL facilitates the payment of duty on behalf of its customer. So I am a little bit confused by exactly what's happening here. What's the relationship between DHL, Cettire, and the Department of Home Affairs? So that was Cettire's response. And to be honest with you, the only question I have moving forward is, again, what happened to the $169.43? But again, I think if they benefited from not paying as much tax as they should have, or duties or taxes, whatever you want to call it, as they should have, would we have seen an article by or released by AFR? And it all comes down to luck, whether you're going to pay under or over the amount of duties you should have paid. I still think there's probably a better system out there that Cettire could use, but that's just me. So let's get to the next two articles released by AFR on the afternoon and evening on March 6th. The first one was from the Chanticleer. Cettire should learn from its reality check. The luxury retailer needs to learn that rapidly rising share price attracts rising scrutiny and rising skepticism. I do have a problem with that. And I'll get to the second paragraph here, which I have a massive problem with. The first paragraph, I don't have a problem with at all. In fact, maybe the biggest story here is that the CEO and founder sold some shares 2 days before this article was released. Did he know that AFR were going to write or release a scathing article against Cettire? And did he take advantage of that knowledge? That would be an interesting article. Now, on the counter to that, they actually did say here, Dean Mintz determined efforts to avoid talking to the media and his habit of selling large chunks of stock every 6 months, as he did on Monday. So maybe this was just his time to sell a large chunk of stocks. Now, he has every right to sell some shares. Every right to do that. I am not going to begrudge Dean Mintz from selling shares. My only question is just the timing here. Is it a coincidence or not? Now, based off the fact that he has a habit of selling large chunks of stocks every 6 months, maybe this was just coincidence. Now we get to the paragraph which I do have a problem with, a massive problem with this. But perhaps the biggest source of skepticism is a stunning recent rise from $2.52 on January 16 to a staggering $4.83 on March 1st. Many argue this was a stock cruising for a correction. The reason I have a massive problem with that is you have to understand why the share price might have risen like that. And it's easy to understand if you know what's going on with this company and you know what happens in February. February is reporting season. Cettire released their half-year results in February. On that particular day, the share price of Cettire rose 25%. In the following few weeks, the share price rose a further 25%. So just on the back of this company's half-year results, the share price took off. That is not skepticism. To understand why the share price might rally on half-year results or just financial results, that's a powerful reason why the share price might move. It's not a reason to be skeptical. And I do have a massive problem with that particular paragraph. Now, the third paragraph, I don't have a problem with. And this is a question I also have in regards to Cettire. That represents a failure of communication. Cettire's decision to decline to explain to its position to the Financial Review has left it looking reactive at best. And I actually do agree with that. Cettire should have responded to Financial Review, and they also should have released a response before the markets are opened for the day, particularly because this particular article was released at 5 a.m. They had plenty of time. That could have gone to a trading alt or a accredited trading alt, so they could release their reply because I think that reply was needed. And you can see the reply was needed just by how the share price moved on open, down 27%. So a couple of good things here written in this article, but that middle one, that the skepticism, the share price has increased significantly since January 16, is absolute BS. And the final article written by Jonathan Shapiro and Kerry LaFrance and released at 6:06 p.m., which is just after that second article, which was released was at 5:33 p.m. Cettire struggles to convince skeptical markets as shares for 14%. Now, what they forget to mention in that particular title of the article is the share price at one point in time was down 27% and then rallied on the back of Cettire's response. They do mention that towards the end of the article, but not near the top. In fact, near the top of the article, they say, despite the call and extensive statement to investors, the company's share price closed more than 14% lower on Wednesday at $3.99, wiping $250 million from Cettire's market valuation. What they forget to say in the initial bit in the top of the article is that originally the share price fell to as low as about $3.40, if I remember correctly, and then the share price rallied on the back of this extensive statement to investors. And then finally, towards the bottom of the article, they said Cettire's response helped trigger a relief rally as the shares jumped above $4 after initially falling as low as $3.50, 25% for the session. I'm pretty sure it was down lower than that, and I'm pretty sure it was 25% at the greatest. So you can just see how you can be manipulated into thinking something if you don't read the whole story or you don't know what is going on. So you might think the share price fell 14% because of AFR's article, but that's not completely true. The share price actually fell 27% because of this article, but then rallied on the back of Cettire's response. And this is the chart for Cettire. Share price of Cettire was as low as 40 cents back in July. And you can see the share price has been a beautiful uptrend since then. Now, notice they talked about how the share price has risen from January 16. They picked the bottom. So you can see the share price actually dipped from about $3.60 all the way down to $2.50. That was over about a 1.5 month period. So they picked the bottom to get their point through. And I actually do have a problem with that. So the share price rallied or started to rally just before the company released the half-year results. Then the company released the half-year results, and you can see what time or what date they released their results, when the share price has suddenly popped up on massive volume. Pretty big volume coming through that day. Not as big as volume as when the CEO sold his shares, but the reason there was massive volume on that day is because the CEO sold some shares, and a fair amount of shares. That's why there was massive volume on that particular day. Also, pretty big volume on the day the company or AFR released this article. So that seems to have caused a little bit more interest in the market than when the company released the half-year results. But when the company released the half-year results, share price increased 25% on that day. Share price closed, what was it, $4 on that day, and then continued to rise. In fact, the share price rose from $4 on the day they released the half-year results all the way up to $4.90. So the share price continued to rise another 25%. So it rose over 50% just on the back of the company's half-year results. Again, this is why I think that second paragraph in regards to being skeptical about the rise, it's absolute BS, because it is on the back of financial numbers. That's no reason to become skeptical. So who won this fight between Cettire and Financial Review? I think Financial Review put a really good first punch in, but then Cettire responded with a counter punch, and then that counter punch really hurt Financial Review. So Financial Review, always being the ones who want to have the last word, put in 2 more articles to justify their initial position. Who knows who's going to win? I have no idea. I think at this point in time, there's no winner, and we won't have a winner until we won't know a winner until a few months, maybe even a few years from now. But I did enjoy this little stoush between these 2 capable competitors, Cettire and Australian Financial Review. If you have any questions, any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So leave them in the comment section of this video. Otherwise, I am not a financial advisor. If you do need financial advice, make sure you seek out someone who is qualified and can speak to your own financial needs. That's it for this video. Have a good day. Bye.